So I'm going to be doing a presentation on fermented garlic. So preserving fresh garlic using a lacto-fermented method using a salt brine. This is one of my favorite fermentation processes because it's super easy, and then I have ready to go garlic in my fridge, which just makes cooking super easy. All the garlic is already peeled and fermented, so it'll stay good for up to 3 months in the fridge. So what to know about fermentation? During fermentation, the pH of a food is lowered as lactic acid bacteria convert sugars to acid. This acidity is what provides a preservation effect on the food. To produce a safe fermented product, it is important that the pH drop from around pH 7 to pH 5.2 or lower in the first 24 hours, and then to below pH 4.6 within 48 hours. For this to occur, it is critical that a food's environmental conditions be manipulated to select for optimum growth of lactic acid bacteria. These conditions include acidity, temperature, oxygen, moisture, salt, and nutrients. So I'm just going to go over these few things really quickly just to have a better understanding of the fermentation process. So first we'll talk about temperature. Fermentation temperature allows for pathogens to be destroyed while inhibiting growth of organisms that can spoil the food. Fermentation temperatures lower than 60 degrees may not ferment. Temperature above 75 degrees may result in fermented food being too soft. So when you're fermenting food, you really want to take into account a few different things, mainly what time of year it is and how warm your kitchen gets. If you can keep the ferments within that temperature range in your kitchen, then you could just ferment on your counter. Otherwise, you might have to figure out another process to make sure that everything stays within the right temperature. So the next thing is salt. The type and extent of microbial activity is affected by the salt. Salt level also prevents vegetables from becoming soft by aiding in the selection of lactic acid bacteria rather than other bacteria that can break down the vegetable, creating softness. It's important to measure salt carefully by weight or ratio provided by the recipe and use non-iodized salt. Fermented foods can become contaminated super easily. You want to make sure that all of your equipment is clean, and then after the fermentation process, you want to make sure that it doesn't come into contact with any other foods, unwashed hands, and unclean food contact surfaces and utensils. To store a ferment, you want to store it in the refrigerator, 41 degrees below or lower, and it could be stored for up to 3 months. You can also process certain ferments in a boiling water bath canner for shelf-stable storage, but we won't be doing that with this recipe because we don't know what the final acidity of the fermented garlic is, so we'll just put it in the fridge and preserve it that way. And again, equipment for fermenting, make sure you have proper equipment. We'll be using a glass pint jar in this recipe. You don't want to use aluminum, copper, brass, or galvanized iron containers. Okay, so the ingredients and supplies needed for this recipe is a clean pint glass jar or fermenting crock, a clean air stop, clean fermentation rate, weight, fresh cured organic garlic cloves, peeled, just about 1/3 of a cup. You just want to make sure there's enough space between the top of the jar and the garlic to allow the brine to cover the garlic completely. So then you'll add 2 cups of boiled and cooled brine. The brine is 1.5 tablespoons of salt per quart of filtered water. So for this recipe, the ratio would be 3/4 of a tablespoon of salt per pint of filtered water. So here is a quick video that I made of the whole process. So here is just a quick step-by-step instructional, And then you'll need to make the brine, so 3/4 tablespoon to 1 pint of salt to 1 pint of filtered water. I use sea salt. You then want to bring the brine to a rolling boil, remove from heat, and then let cool completely. And then you want to fill that pint jar with the peeled garlic and cover the garlic with that cooled brine. Make sure that all those cloves are submerged. You then want to put a clean fermentation weight. That just helps to keep all the garlic cloves submerged during the fermentation process. You'll then want to take your airlock cap and fill it to the max line with the remaining brine and tighten the airlock lid to the jar. And then you want to give that jar a shake every day during the fermentation process just to make sure that all of the ingredients are mixed properly. So once that is done, you can, let's see, once that's done, then you can put the jar into the fridge and it'll keep. And like I said, it's super easy and fun to use in all kinds of recipes. So here are the resources. I got all of my information either from the Fundamentals of Consumer Food Safety and Preservation, which is one of the books that we have for the Master Food Preservation course. And then the rest of my resources came from the UCANR website, and I've included these links in case any of you all are interested. Thank you so much.